Hey, welcome to another video from the Outdoor Analyst. Today I've got a real fun one for you. Today's going to be an overview of the brand LT Wright. This is a brand that has been around for many years, and they have really kind of pigeonholed themselves into being known as one of the best bushcraft knives out there, or a bushcraft knife brand. They're basically have the same sort of following as Mora, essentially, as far as bushcraft goes. But they're a little different on their quality, I think. And that's kind of what I wanted to go over today. Is just give you a real good overview of what you can expect when you legitimately pick up one of these without kind of a group thinky mindset. I've seen a lot of things on YouTube and a lot of articles that just lead you in wrong directions, one way or the other. Other people love it, other people hate it. They kind of give you a lot of false information. So I'll just give you my actual perspective from using these for years and years and years and moving from different brands. And, I've actually still found myself enjoying these as far as bushcraft goes. So what do you really get when you pick up an LT Wright? First, I guess everybody realizes when you search for them, your price. Your price on these usually are around, I'd say around $200 is a good average for an LT Wright. They can go up from there, they can go a little bit down from there. I mean, you can pick them up from 100 to 300. That's your range, but your average is around like $200, depending on the handle material that you're going to get and the steel that you're going to get. So, know that just right off the bat, they're not cheap, but they're not like mega expensive either. I'd say they're kind of we're just middle of the line as far as price goes. And with that price, what you're getting, in my opinion, is some of the best handle ergonomics in the business. Just almost bar none. That's what has kept me coming back to LT Wright. Is the first knife I actually bought was this JX2, and this one is a fantastic little CPM 3V knife. It has a really weird blade shape, but for bushcraft it works very well. But what they're really known for are these handles. They are very comfortable, and that's what you're going to be doing with bushcraft is basically the same movement over and over and over again. And to do that, you have to make sure you're not getting movement and hot spots in the handle while you're doing what you're doing. And that's what really drew me to these. Was they're just designed very well for your hands, more so than pretty much any other brand I've picked up when it comes to the tasks you're doing with bushcraft. We'll make that caveat. And these are handmade, so when it comes to ergonomics, another thing you should know is that they're all going to be a little different. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's really bad. I haven't had really bad experiences with ergonomics with these, but just know that no two knives are the same if they're coming from LT Wright, because they're hand ground. Their handles are just sanded down essentially. So this was my first one, and this was the second one. This was a nice burlap micarta. This is a good G10. And they are completely different feeling, even though they're both incredibly comfortable because of the actual design of them itself. This one's much thinner and much lighter. When I picked up the G10 is just always heavier than a burlap micarta, which I kind of expected, but this one's also way thicker when they went to make this handle, which honestly fits incredibly well too. So just know that ahead of time, that they're not all going to be the same. You pick up one, you think you're going to get the exact same thing. You're most likely not. There's different guys that actually make these for them, or gals. So just kind of keep that in mind, but they're extremely comfortable. This one's the, I think, DLT exclusive Outback. Has the same handle as the GNS, and it is ridiculously comfortable. I mean, they just locks you in really, really well for anything you're going to be doing with the bushcraft sort of grips. Just a big fan of them, and that's kind of what really drew me in. Now after that, and really, let's say it's probably more important, it's actually the way they grind their knives as well. The steel and the grinds they're impeccable when it comes to bushcraft use. Their Scandies are awesome because they're very thin, not just behind the edge, but in their Scandies. They take them down. Yeah, Scandi is, a zero bevel, essentially. They go down to supposedly zero on both sides and meet in the middle. But these are incredibly thin. And what I kind of mean by that is, let's take another really high-end bushcraft knife. This is an Adventure Sworn, I think it's Outdoorsman, something like that. It's a lot thicker, behind the edge essentially when it comes up this. It gets a lot thicker, a lot faster than any of the LT Wrights that I have, which means it does bite through wood really, really well. These do it just a little bit better. So, super high-end knife. This kind of actually beats it. So keep that in mind, as that's why people always seem to kind of say these are some of the best bushcraft knives out there, and that's kind of why. Honestly, the ergonomics are insane. They are very thin on their scandies, and they use great steels. CPM 3V, A2 are kind of their go-tos. They've been doing a lot of stainless and AEBL, which is this one right here. I find AEBL to be it's supposed to be one of the toughest stainless steels, even though it's kind of an old non-powder steel. I find it to be a little rolly, and I've used quite a few AEBL knives, and if they're really thin behind the edge and you're really just kind of cranking down on them, I get a lot of rolls off of them, even the LT Wright ones, so just kind of know that. Keep that in mind. You can't be super, super hard use with it. But their A2 is insane. I think their A2 is probably one of the best heat-treated versions I've ever used. Even above Bark Rivers, I love whatever heat treat these guys do is really, really tough, which makes it a little more complicated to sharpen, even though it's A2. Surprise, surprise, but it does. So just kind of keep that in mind. Their steels are amazing, but they always, since they are very, very thin, yes, it's a Scandi, but they're really thin as far as their grinds go. I've rolled this knife actually quite a few times. You can see some of the work there. Yep, it's back out and razor sharp again. But if you do some crazy things with it, and AKA maybe nick the little thing you're starting your fire in that was actually aluminum, yeah, it nicked it, it rolled it. No big deal to really take out, but just kind of know that when you're dealing with Scandis in general, they go down to bloody zero basically. So it's a very, very, very thin edge and can roll pretty easy, which is why I like using 3V as the majority of the steels that I get from them. Or their A2 is really tough too, but 3V is just kind of the win in that, which is what I love. You're getting a 3V knife that goes through wood better than pretty much anything else out there for $200, or around there, under 300. And I think that's really fantastic. Another thing that comes with them, I love their sheaths. These are, I'd say they're a little over medium grade sheath, but they come with a dangler, and that's kind of a bonus. Most of them also come with a little fire steel loop, which is really, really cool. But this is your average JRE sheath. I think they're better than Bark River sheaths, especially because they have a dangler. If you're bushcrafting, you're sitting down, you're getting up quite a bit. These are really, really comfortable. And even little, this JX, what is this, the JX3 sheath, just fantastic. Nice little sheath there. They come in a great color. I've never had an issue with them getting loose when you just use the exact same knife over and over again with them. Really, really good sheaths. And you're not like getting a $200 sheath, but when your entire knife costs $250 and you get a decent sheath with it, that's just kind of a win. Definitely a big fan of that. So that's kind of your package, and dealing with them has been great. I've only had to call them a few times for anything. This is a CPM 3V knife, but it was one of the few in the run that wasn't stamped. I think they always stamp them with an X on there for the 3V stuff, and I didn't have a stamp on it. And I was just kind of curious of whether it was or not. And yeah, they were really great about figuring it out and making sure that it was the knife that I thought it was going to be instead of an A2 version. Yeah, there's the X that they usually stamp on all of them. So, and if you have an A2 version, they'll put an A on it. Let's get that in focus there. AEBL. I don't know what they do for that. Oh, they put an L on them. So, you know what steel you're getting when you're actually picking these up. So if you pick them up on the secondary market, you can usually find them. But if they're unmarked, just give them a call, and then they'll figure it out for you what run it came from. So yeah, I've had great dealings with them. They're a very positive company. All their stuff on Facebook, their groups, they're really just truly a positive group of guys and gals. So I feel like that's really fantastic. Maybe I'll put a few competitors up here, let you know what difference you're getting for what you're paying for. When you're talking about bushcraft, if you don't mention Mora, then you don't know anything about it. These are the best knives that you can get for the money, especially when it comes to bushcraft. Any Mora, they just have incredible Scandis. you know, when these are 10 bucks, 20 bucks, you just can't beat them. Now, is it worth it to move up? I'd say yes and no. And let me give you a fun little story here. So this is the JX, oh, what is this? Oh, Jesmix C, that's what it's called. And this was its competitor, the little, oh gosh, what is this? The Mora Eldris. And my goal was to pick up a good backpacking knife. And originally I picked up the Jesmix C because I love the big version so well. It's so great with wood. But this thing weighs like 4 ounces more than this. And yes, AEBL is a much better steel than a 12C27. But hey, when it comes down to weight and actually getting stuff done in the backcountry, I take this backpacking every single time now, and I've started tons of fires with this little puppy. Whereas this thing that's a little bit heavier, yeah, it stays home. So just so you know, cheap is not always bad. I still take this thing with me all the time. Some other competitors, everybody will probably throw it against Falkneven if you're anywhere from the early 2000s. Falknevens are great. Their handle ergonomics are nowhere near as good as any LT Wright that I've ever handled. Do I like Falknevens? Yeah, I love this knife. It's even been a great little field dressing knife. I've had to use this a few times, but it just doesn't come anywhere close the handle ergonomics of doing actual bushcraft work with an LT Wright knife. So that's kind of your difference on there, and you're usually getting a better steel. VG10, even though it's wrapped in 420, is not anywhere near as good as, you know, rolling a CPM 3V or even an A2 as far as the performance levels go. This is stainless, whereas all of these are not except for your AEBL, but yeah, to each their own. Let's see, kind of the next step up in price would be maybe like a Benchmade. This is their Luku. It's an okay knife. It's sort of grown on me a little bit more. It does not have a scanty edge. It's just a regular saber grind with a dual bevel. They're okay. The ergonomics are okay. I don't like this rubber. This stuff does really hurt your hands after a while. And yes, I have some pretty rough hands, believe it or not. Not a pansy, as I've been called in so many comments. But it really does mess with you. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, this stuff just gets in your hands really quick. So it's not super comfortable for the long term. Money wise, you know, these are what, 130 bucks, 150 bucks. To me, it's worth it to just move up to an LT Wright for 200. Get a used one. You'll actually be much happier with that than this in the long term. CPM 3V versus 3V. I still think the heat treat on LT Wright stuff is a little better than Benchmade's. Benchmade always runs their stuff soft. I get it. I get it now. I mean, it's just because people do stupid things with knives and they don't have to mess with them nearly as much if they make them softer. But I don't know. I love the performance of their 3V. Moving up, probably a little above the LT Wright price point is going to be Bark River knives. This is the Bark River Bushcrafter. In comparison, I love these. Like, you know, when it comes to bushcraft, Bark River has a really good ergonomic feel. They have good designs. I think for my hands, LT Wrights are always just a little more comfortable. And the reason why is they're a little bit thicker. Every Bark River I've ever had is going to be thinner than any LT Wright I've ever picked up in their ergonomics. And this is probably the fattest I've ever seen a Bark River when it comes to a knife like this, because they actually swelled the old ones up in the back, versus the new ones are just Coke bottled. But the thickness of them just makes these more comfortable than your Bark Rivers. And Bark Rivers usually cost in between the very low end, 200. Now they're kind of averaging around 300 for anything that's not like super, super basic. So price-wise, LT Wrights are generally cheaper. And if you're bushcrafting, I'd actually take the LT Wright over them. I love Bark River. They do a great job. When it comes to like the making their grinds and making bevels, LT Wright will always beat it. They pay a lot more attention to them. I mean, you can just see this is really, really crooked. This is really, really perfect. And that's how they all seem to come. So they do a really good job on those. Whereas, yeah, Bark Rivers, they've had some issues on some of their stuff. Kind of the higher end would be more along the lines of Adventure Sworn. And fit and finish, I'll be honest, fit and finish, I've actually found LT Wrights to equal Adventure Sworn in pretty much everything they've done. Really, the main difference you kind of get is just design work. I think Adventure Sworns are unique in their handle designs. They're a much smaller company than LT Wright. Do some really cool work, really cool wood stuff. And I think that might be the downfall of LT Wright if they had, a flaw, is that most of their stuff isn't really exotic or unique. And I think that's kind of how they keep their prices down. Most of their really cool stuff is going to be more along the lines of 300, and they don't do nearly as much. Whereas pretty much everything you get from LT Wright is going to be really cool. Or most, I'd say a good majority of Bark Rivers have a lot cooler handle materials, and they're also willing to branch out a little more. So yeah, you get a little more uniqueness that way. But you pay a little more for it too. When it comes down to actual performance, I think LT Wright usually wins. And I'll even say that on the Scandi. I think I mentioned it before, that the Scandi on the Adventure Sworn is a little thicker. It does not bite in as well as the LT Wrights. Now it might make it a little tougher. Even this is a 3V version, and I've never rolled one of these where I have rolled some LT Wrights because I think they're a little thinner all around. I also haven't hit my Adventure Sworn on anything aluminum, so there's that too. But yeah, all in all, I think for the money, $200, $250, you're going to get the best LT. You're going to get probably the best bushcraft knife for the money. Now, they do go down to like 100 for some of their field dressing knives that are more specific for that. I actually haven't picked any of those up. Most of my field dressers are just gifts from my dad, and you know what? When I'm going to do something really, really special, I'm going to use a gift knife more than just something I'm going to go out and buy on my own. So there's the reason why I haven't picked any of those up. I do have this little puppy, but I just end up using other things a little more than this. So there's that. I think it's a great brand. I think if you have the money to spend, that's your price point. I think that's the best way you can go for a bushcraft knife. Remember, these are Scandis. They're not the best at doing other things. If you told me I was going to camp and I'm going to be doing a lot of food work along with woods work, I'm actually going to take my Falk Neven over that. Just a heads up, because the grind is a little thinner all the way around. I'd even actually take my Bark River for a camp knife a little bit over one of these, because even though this is quote unquote Scandi Vex, it's much thinner all around. You don't get this huge chunk out. So, if you're going to food, this is going to split it versus cut it really, really fast, which is why it's so good with wood, not good with food. Now, you can get regular grinds on LT Wrights. I love what they do with their bushcraft knives so well. I haven't branched out really that much. Branched out a little bit here, but this is just a Skinner, so it's only really done squirrels for the most part. Anyway, I think that covers most of the bases. Yeah, really great for the money. Love their sheaths, love their ergonomics. I think they're bar none probably the best in ergonomics for bushcrafting. That caveat, because there are other handle designers out there that have better grips for doing different things. But for those reasons, I love them. Great brand. Going for bushcraft knives, get them. I don't think you will be disappointed in any way, shape, or form. All right. Thanks for hanging with me, and have a good one.